Welcome to this deep dive brought to you by Ben's Book Summaries. Today we're tackling a topic with, well, truly long-term implications. How childhood nutrition really sets the stage for a lifetime of health. We'll be exploring the insights from Disease-Proof Your Child by Joel Fuhrman, MD.
Yeah, this is a book that it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Dr. Fuhrman, as a board-certified family physician, he brings a huge amount of medical knowledge.
Right.
And the endorsements he's got from people like Howard Lyman, Michael Clapper, John Robbins, T. Colin Campbell, Neil Pinckney, too. It definitely signals this is, a pretty significant work in the field.
Absolutely. And the core message, the real heart of Disease-Proof Your Child, it's something that needs serious thought, especially for you, the learner, if you're thinking about the foundations of well-being. The idea is that what our kids eat early on, it isn't just about fuel for today.
Right, not just running around the playground.
Exactly. It's fundamentally shaping their resistance to major chronic diseases, things like heart disease, cancer, way down the line.
So our goal, our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the most crucial bits, the key takeaways, the stuff that really sticks, and understand why this book is still so relevant for anyone interested in building that solid health foundation.
And T. Colin Campbell, you mentioned him, in his foreword, he lays down something pretty powerful right from the get-go.
Yeah.
He basically says that childhood diets can actually create the cellular environment, like the groundwork, where adult cancers are more likely to develop later on. So if we really want to prevent these diseases, the earlier we step in, especially those first 10 years, that's critical.
Wow. That's a sobering thought, isn't it?
It really is.
That the choices we make for kids now could echo for decades. And the statistics that both Dr. Campbell and Dr. Fuhrman use, they really show the scale of the problem.
It's kind of shocking.
We're talking less than 2% of the average American kid's diet coming from, natural plant foods. Fruits, vegetables.
The good stuff, right. And a staggering 90%. That's coming from dairy, white flour, sugar, and oil. Just think about that. The building blocks for a growing body, mostly coming from these processed sources. It just shows how far off track we've sort of gone from a nutrient-dense base.
And it gets even more specific and maybe more worrying. They point out that about a quarter, 25% of toddlers, like 1 to 2-year-olds, they don't eat any fruits or vegetables on a given day. 0.
Wow.
And by 15 months old, the most common vegetable they eat,
French fries.
French fries.
Yeah.
As the top vegetable.
Yeah.
Now, that really puts it in perspective.
It does. And it's not just about missing vitamins. The book explores how these early diets are being linked more and more to autoimmune illnesses.
Like Crohn's, lupus.
Exactly. And, as we said, a much higher risk of cancers later in life.
And Dr. Fuhrman's perspective here, it's shaped by being both a doctor and a parent, right?
Absolutely. He saw it in his practice, how diet affected his patients.
Yeah.
And that clearly drove him to want to give practical advice to families. He saw the connection firsthand. And you get the feeling parents are looking for this kind of help. There's this general sense that the standard diet isn't great.
Right.
But maybe people feel overwhelmed or confused by conflicting info, or just, how do you actually get kids to eat this stuff?
Exactly. They want practical steps.
Yeah.
And Fuhrman doesn't just give the science. He shares stories about his own kids, Kara and Talia.
Ah, right.
Which makes it more relatable. It's not just theory, it's seeing it work in a real family.
The story about his daughter Kara when she was 7, that one really hits home.
Oh, yeah. Remind me.
She was at summer camp, saw kids eating chips, cookies, candy, all that stuff.
Standard camp fare, unfortunately.
And she turns to him and asks, "Don't these parents love their children?"
Wow. Yeah. That's powerful from a 7-year-old.
It cuts right through, doesn't it? It's one of those quotes that just makes you pause.
It really does. It gets to the heart of it. And Talia, the other daughter, her story is encouraging too. Shows that kids raised this way don't necessarily rebel against it later. Yeah, she seemed to naturally prefer healthy foods and even influenced her friends positively. So these habits can stick and even spread.
Okay, so let's dig a bit deeper then. What does Fuhrman actually mean by superior nutrition? He starts with a comparison to primates, right? Gorillas, chimpanzees.
Yeah, it's an interesting starting point. The genetic difference is small, relatively speaking.
Right.
But he points out that each species has a specific natural diet that's absolutely key for their health, for resisting disease. And primates, like us, thrive on diets rich in natural, micronutrient-dense plant foods. It really frames our own needs differently when you think about it that way.
It reinforces that idea that our bodies are also designed to run best on whole, unprocessed foods, which leads to that phrase, we are what we eat.
Mm-hmm. But it's more than just a slogan. He explains how food provides the actual building blocks for every cell, every organ, including the brain.
The brain, too.
Absolutely. Critical nutrients are vital for making neurotransmitters for brain cell receptors to work properly. So it's not just physical health. Nutrition is tied directly to how we think, how we feel.
Our cognitive function, emotional state, fueled by food.
Exactly. The fuel matters.
And this is where he challenges that common idea that chronic diseases are just part of getting old.
Right. He argues that things like hypertension, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, even most cancers, they often stem from poor food choices made way back in those formative childhood years.
So not inevitable aging, but maybe the result of nutritional mistakes early on.
Yeah, he frames optimal health as the normal state. Our bodies have these incredible self-repair, self-defense systems. But that machinery gets compromised if it's constantly fueled with the wrong stuff, especially when it's developing rapidly in childhood.
Which leads him to call nutritional excellence the real fountain of youth.
Exactly. Not creams or procedures, but nourishing from the inside out right from the start, slowing aging, preventing those chronic diseases.
And he makes a key point for you, the learner here. It's not just about popping vitamins, is it?
No, definitely not. While vitamins and minerals are important, the real magic, he argues, is in the thousands of other compounds in whole foods. Phytonutrients.
Phytonutrients.
Yeah, think of them as all those natural chemicals in colorful fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds. They work together like a team, protecting the body. It's synergistic.
Okay, so we're getting a picture of the power of good nutrition. Now let's flip that. The dangers of the modern diet, especially for kids. He starts with heart disease, saying it's relatively new.
Yeah, historically speaking, it wasn't the leading killer until, say, the last century or so. He talks about early researchers noticing a link between rising heart attacks and diets high in cholesterol and saturated fat in Europe. This kind of challenges it's all genetic idea.
Right, because there are populations with very different diets where heart disease is almost unknown.
Exactly. And by the 1950s, the science was strongly pointing towards saturated fat raising serum cholesterol.
Yeah.
A major risk factor.
And the flip side, more fruits and veggies meant less heart disease.
Right, an inverse relationship. And over the last 50-plus years, that link's been solidified by tons of research.
So Fuhrman's pretty clear. Heart disease, many cancers, strokes, largely down to our modern way of eating.
Yeah, he cautions that very few people have the genes to eat poorly, consistently, without paying a price health-wise.
And he specifically calls out saturated and trans fats as the main villains.
Promoting both heart attacks and cancer. And a key point he makes, we have no biological need for saturated fat. Our bodies don't require it.
No requirement. Okay. And trans fats, he calls it a nightmare.
Yeah, because they're artificial. Made by hydrogenating vegetable oils, putting liquid oil solid.
Found in.
Oh, tons of processed junk. Candy bars, donuts, lots of French fries, snacks.
And the problem with them is
they have this double negative effect on cholesterol. They raise the LDL, the bad stuff.
Right.
And they lower the HDL, the good stuff. He notes their impact is actually worse than eating cholesterol directly.
Wow. Okay. He also mentions acrylamides.
These are chemicals, probably carcinogenic, that form when starchy foods are baked or fried at high temps.
Like chips, fries, some cereals.
Yeah, potato chips, French fries, even some sugary breakfast cereals can have them. The direct link to human cancer is still studied, but most experts agree they pose a risk.
So another reason to limit those super processed, high heat foods.
Exactly. But it's not all doom and gloom with fats, right? He emphasizes healthy fats.
Definitely. From raw nuts, seeds, avocados, crucial for growth, development, and disease protection.
Yeah, he even cites a study showing men who ate raw nuts regularly had half the heart attack rate.
Half the rate.
And these healthy fats come packaged with loads of other good stuff. Studies show regular raw nut and seed consumption is linked to lower death rates overall, even longer lifespan.
So it really highlights, shifting from avoiding all fat to being smart about the type and source of fat.
Precisely.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Nutrition and brain function, another key area for Fuhrman.
Yeah, he argues strongly that intelligence, emotional well-being, they're significantly influenced by our nutrition, especially during that critical early brain development phase.
That quote, "You behave and think what you eat," really sums it up.
It does, doesn't it? It's direct. The brain is largely fat, so it needs the right balance of omega-3s and omega-6s. for fluidity, communication between cells.
And he points to nuts and seeds for those.
Yes, as excellent sources of unpolluted essential fats. Plus, they have antioxidants, vitamins, minerals.
Unpolluted being the key word there, he raises concerns about fish.
Potential contamination from pollutants, pesticides, hormones, drugs. They can accumulate in fish fat.
So he prefers plant sources.
Yeah, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, walnuts. He calls them great brain food. A cleaner source, he argues.
Okay, and what about high-fructose corn syrup, HFCS?
Yes. He calls it an unnatural fattening substance, potentially dangerous with consequences we might not fully understand yet.
And it's everywhere, soft drinks, processed foods.
Exactly. He contrasts the high intake of sugary drinks in kids with their super low intake of fruits and veggies.
And sees that as a driver of the obesity episode.
A major contributing factor, yeah. And he really stresses parental responsibility here. Nurturing healthy habits is crucial, especially with unhealthy options constantly marketed to kids.
Parents have a huge role in shaping those lifelong patterns.
Absolutely critical.
Okay, moving on to specifics. Salt, protein, calcium. What's his take? Salt first.
Well, the link between high salt intake in childhood and later high blood pressure, kidney failure, heart disease, that's well established. He emphasizes that.
And the effects are long-lasting. Like, damage done early is hard to undo.
That's the idea. The body's regulatory systems can be affected long-term. Cutting salt later might not protect you as much as avoiding high intake from the start.
Right, okay, protein.
He points out it's actually pretty common in modern diets, especially in developed countries. Real deficiency is rare.
So the issue isn't getting enough protein.
Often, it's getting too much, he argues, especially animal protein, which studies have linked to higher rates of some chronic diseases.
So he favors plant-based protein and fat sources.
Yes, largely because they generally come with more micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, those vital phytonutrients we talked about.
Gotcha. And calcium. He challenges the milk is essential idea.
He does. He explains that calcium absorption can actually be more efficient from many vegetables compared to milk.
Really? More efficient from veggies.
And he points out that high animal protein and high salt intake can actually increase calcium loss in urine.
Oh, so you might need more calcium if you eat a lot of animal protein and salt.
Paradoxically, yes. He emphasizes that a diet rich in natural plant foods contributes to bone density. He recommends cutting back on high-fat dairy and getting fats and calcium from nuts, seeds, tofu, leafy greens.
Interesting shift in perspective,
Yep.
which kind of leads us to his next point, rethinking childhood illnesses.
Right. He reminds us that drugs, while sometimes needed, have potential toxicities. Lifestyle and diet should be the first thought.
The first line of defense.
Exactly. And he distinguishes between symptoms and the illness itself. Symptoms are often the body's defense mechanism, trying to heal.
Like diarrhea with food poisoning or fever with a cold.
Precisely. The body working to get rid of the problem.
And this applies to ADHD too. He has concerns about medication use.
Big concerns about the widespread use of stimulants.
Yeah.
Potential side effects. He shares his clinical experience, seeing consistently good results in kids with ADHD who follow a program focused on nutritional excellence.
So what does that involve?
High nutrient foods, totally removing processed and artificial foods, and supplementing with omega-3s.
And he saw kids improve significantly. He mentions an anecdote.
Yeah, a boy named George Grant who apparently came off Ritalin and did much better just through diet changes. Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And on omega-3s, specifically DHA for brain and eye health, he prefers non-fish sources.
Right. Algae-derived DHA, again due to concerns about pollutants in fish oil. He stresses DHA's role in breast milk. It's linked to IQ development, and suggests some kids might benefit from avoiding gluten and casein too.
Gotcha. Now, antibiotics. Overuse is a big topic.
Huge. He discusses the dangers disrupting gut bacteria, leading to diarrhea, yeast overgrowth, antibiotic resistance.
Killing off the good bacteria too.
Exactly. And he talks about this vicious cycle. Poor nutrition weakens the immune system,
Leading to infections,
which get treated with antibiotics,
which disrupt the gut and weaken immunity further.
potentially leading to more infections. It's a cycle.
And he questions routine antibiotic use for things like ear infections.
Yeah. Noting many are self-limiting, they resolve on their own. He shares another story, a kid named Kyle, who overcame recurrent ear infections just by changing his diet. Again, highlighting that nutrition-immunity link.
And it connects early antibiotic use to higher rates of allergies and asthma later.
Yes, there's growing evidence for that link. He even questions routinely treating strep throat with antibiotics, given how low rheumatic fever rates are now compared to the risks of antibiotic overuse.
It's a different way of looking at common childhood issues.
Definitely a more holistic, preventative view.
Which brings us to allergies and asthma. He sees diet and lifestyle playing a big role, not just genetics.
A very significant role. He notes higher rates in places with diets high in animal products, fast food, and low in fresh produce.
He mentions vitamin E specifically.
Low intake found in greens, nuts, seeds, not so much in animal foods, is associated with more asthma. He recommends a high-nutrient plant-based diet plus flax seeds and walnuts for managing allergies and asthma.
Okay. And other conditions, like type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. He highlights the strong link between early introduction of cow's milk protein and a significantly increased risk of type 1 diabetes.
Oh, significant risk.
And potentially a link between cow's milk and Crohn's disease, maybe due to the MAP bacterium. Even IBS might be affected by dairy for some people.
So a lot of potential connections there. Now let's shift to what he calls the preventable epidemic of cancer. That's a strong statement.
It is. He argues that despite overwhelming evidence linking diet to cancer risk, public awareness and actual dietary changes lag behind. Why? Complex reasons, including industry influence.
And the stats are alarming. He emphasizes focusing less on treatment and more on understanding and avoiding the causes.
Exactly. The huge differences in cancer rates globally, like for breast and colon cancer, strongly suggest diet is the main driver.
And when people migrate from low cancer rate areas to the U.S., their rates go up.
Dramatically. And even more so for their children raised on a Western diet from birth. That's powerful evidence for diet being key.
He fingers animal fat as a potential cancer promoter.
Yes, while high fruit and vegetable intake consistently shows a protective effect against all studied cancers.
He also links childhood calorie intake to later cancer risk.
Suggesting higher energy intake during those formative years might increase later risk.
And dairy consumption, linked to lower breast and prostate cancer rates where intake is low.
That's what the epidemiological studies show consistently. He also mentions breast milk's protective role in the first 2 years.
He raises concerns about hormones in cow's milk and cheese, too, natural and added.
Yeah, suggesting they could affect growth, development, maybe cancer risk. He proposes that slower growth and later maturity might actually be healthier long-term.
Interesting. He also mentions calorie restriction with high nutrients.
Right. Animal studies show it extends lifespan significantly. He contrasts that with our modern high-calorie, low-nutrient kid diets.
Which are concerning. And early puberty in girls, linked to diet.
Yes, associated with higher animal product intake and lower vegetable intake before age 8. This increases lifetime estrogen exposure, raising breast cancer risk.
He also talks about secret chemicals, toxins.
Yeah, environmental toxins like dioxins, PCBs, they accumulate in animal fat, so plant-based diets minimize exposure.
And breastfeeding helps mothers eliminate toxins, another benefit.
And finally, on cancer, he notes a potential link between early testosterone levels in boys, influenced by childhood diet, and later prostate cancer risk.
And environmental toxins, generally pesticides, household chemicals, more concentrated in animal products?
Generally, yes. He lists high pesticide foods like strawberries, peaches, and gives tips like peeling, washing.
Okay, so cancer prevention starts young too, which leads us to heart disease. Also a childhood issue.
Absolutely, according to Fuhrman. The lipoprotein issues linked to adult heart attacks often start developing in early childhood.
So early food habits can kind of set lifetime cholesterol levels.
That's the argument. A plant-based, low-saturated fat diet early on is crucial for prevention, even if there's a family history.
Even the American Heart Association acknowledges it starts early.
And recommends limiting salt and saturated fat for the whole family, not just adults.
So for kids genetically prone to heart disease, childhood intervention is key.
Vitally important, he stresses.
Okay, let's focus on the very beginning then. The first year of life, he calls it critical.
Absolutely critical. Foundation for body and mind. DHA-rich breast milk is essential for brain development.
He recommends maternal DHA supplementation.
Yes, during pregnancy and lactation. And continuing breastfeeding well past the first birthday.
Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is the recommendation.
Yes, whenever possible. Then gradual introduction of solids, one at a time, watching for allergies.
Any specific first foods he suggests?
Mashed ripe banana with breast milk, organic brown rice cereal with water and breast milk, avocado, those kinds of things.
And foods to avoid in infancy?
Added salt, sugar, honey. Delaying potential allergens like strawberry, citrus, nut butters. No whole nuts until 2.5 years. No peanuts until 2 years choking and allergy risks.
Got it. And after 12 months.
He suggests introducing well-cooked, pureed veggies and bean soups. Still recommends breastfeeding to at least 18 months, preferably longer.
And if stopping before 18 months, formula, not cows or soy milk.
Correct. Use formula until 18 months.
He really hammers home the dangers of processed and fast food for little ones, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. High calories, low nutrients, trans fats, HFCS, sugar, artificial stuff, carcinogenic byproducts, the whole list.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Now, the practical side. How do parents actually do this? He talks about a variety driver.
Yeah, this idea that kids naturally seek diverse foods, probably an innate drive for different nutrients.
So harnessing that natural tendency and creating the right home environment is key.
Crucial. Removing the processed, low-nutrient stuff. Stocking up on fresh fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds. Prioritizing plant-based meals.
Limiting animal products, using whole grains, minimizing oils. Avoiding cheese, butter, sugar, salt, white flour.
Exactly. And getting rid of sugary drinks, fried foods, barbecued stuff from the house.
Make healthy snacks easy to grab.
And trusting kids to regulate their own calories rather than forcing food. Avoiding that forbidden fruit syndrome by having good stuff available for everyone.
He lists some secrets to getting kids to eat healthfully.
Yeah, like only healthy food in the house. Offer diverse natural foods. Don't manage calories. Parents set the example. Educate kids about nutrition age appropriately.
Parents changing their own habits first seems like a big one.
Foundational, really. Then gradually introduce healthier options and stop the food battles.
Let hunger be the guide, not the clock.
Right. And offer low-calorie healthy snacks like fruit or veggies if they're hungry before meals.
He distinguishes true hunger from toxic hunger.
True hunger is subtle, maybe felt in the neck, throat. Any food sounds good. Toxic hunger is more like withdrawal from an unhealthy diet cravings, head-belly discomfort.
So instill good habits by giving kids choices within a healthy environment.
Exactly. Let them have some say. Young kids often do like fruits and veggies if given the chance early and often. Be persistent.
And educate them about why some foods are harmful.
In an age-appropriate way, yes.
He strongly leans towards vegetarian or vegan diets for optimal health.
Yes, emphasizing the benefits. High nutrients, lower saturated fat. He does address potential B12 and D needs in strict vegan diets and cautions about sodium in vegan processed foods.
Okay. Recommends DHA supplement after weaning.
Yes. 100 milligrams. He notes drawbacks of omnivorous diets, higher saturated fat, toxin accumulation.
So carefully planned vegetarian or very low animal product diets, like 10% or less of calories, are his ideal.
He briefly distinguishes health-conscious vegetarianism from eating disorders like anorexia.
And recommends a multivitamin for everyone, just to cover bases like B12 and D.
Yeah, as a general safety net, regardless of diet.
He lists 10 superfoods.
Yep. Avocados, berries, blue-black, cantaloupe, carrots, beets, flax seeds, green lettuce, kale, sesame seeds, strawberries, tomatoes, highlighting their specific benefits.
And encourages exploring recipes in the book and on his website.
Absolutely. He gives kitchen makeover tips, clear out junk, stock healthy stuff, useful tools like blenders, food processors.
Even gives lunch ideas like whole wheat pitas with healthy fillings.
Mentions specific ingredients like Vitamix, Veg-Base, Mrs. Dash, Bragg's. Lists recipe categories, soups, salads, mains, desserts.
And gives a few examples like carrot cream soup, banana nut cookies.
Yeah, just to give a taste of the kinds of recipes included.
Okay, so wrapping up then, the big takeaway from Disease-Proof Your Child is what?
It's really Dr. Fuhrman's powerful message about the huge, lasting impact of childhood nutrition on health throughout life. Preventing chronic disease starts young.
Right. It's comprehensive, science-based, but presented accessibly for parents.
He argues convincingly that those early diet choices build a foundation for everything. Immunity, brain development, susceptibility to heart disease, cancer.
And the stats he uses about the standard American kid's diet really drive home the urgency.
They do. He challenges common assumptions about needing animal products, about processed foods being okay.
He highlights the dangers saturated trans fats, excess animal protein, processed foods,
while championing the protective power of whole, plant-based foods, rich in micronutrients and phytonutrients.
And importantly, it's not just what to avoid, but how to do it. Practical advice for parents.
Exactly. Creating the healthy home environment, introducing food successfully, cultivating habits that last.
The memorable quotes, like Carr's question, they stick with you.
They really do. They underline the fundamental importance of nourishing kids properly from the start.
And the book's relevance today, it empowers parents, right? Gives them tools.
Absolutely. It empowers you, the learner, as a parent or caregiver, with knowledge and practical tools to give kids the gift of a long, healthy life, free from preventable disease,
It's a shift from reacting to illness.
to proactively building robust health and resilience from the very beginning, starting with food.
So as we finish this deep dive into disease-proof your child, here's a final thought for you to consider. What small but significant change could you realistically make, starting today, to help shape a healthier future? For the next generation, maybe, but also for yourself.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that power of early nutrition and taking those first steps, however small, towards a more nourished, vibrant, disease-resistant life for everyone involved.
This has been a deep dive into disease-proof your child. This deep dive was brought to you by Ben's Book Summaries. Thanks for joining us.